Hello, NewWinter here. In this video, we're going to be doing a continuation of Rake's original cheat engine tutorial. In one of the recent versions here, they added a game, so we're going to go through that, some more realistic examples of what you'll actually see when playing a game, and I'll show you kind of how to approach it. So first thing you need to do is open up Cheat Engine, make sure it's a somewhat recent version. You can hit help and then right here cheat engine tutorial games, click that, it'll open up your game here. Alright, so once the game's open, as always, we will attach to it. Oh, whoops, let's redo that, we don't need those. Yeah, we don't need those. Okay, so first thing you'll see is this window here. We have 5 shots. After we run out of bullets, we reload and the target heals. So you can shoot with space. You can see there's no way to kill it without figuring out how to reset our ammo. So as always, we'll do a normal scan. Start search for 5, 4. Now we have 3 bullets here and still a 4 up here, so we have no results. So that's obviously not how we're going to find it. One trick you can find in some games, it's not super common, is to, instead of counting how many shots we have left, it'll count our total shots, but show us how many we have left. So if we start by searching for a 0, and then a 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. So it looks like that's probably it right there. Okay, and all we need to do is figure out what writes to this address. Well, let's try freezing it first. Yeah, so we can shoot as many times as possible and our ammo is consistently being reset. So now what we'll want to do is figure out what writes to it. Okay, there we go. Let's restart that. Find out what writes to it. Every time you shoot, you can see it's doing some stuff here. Pretty easy. It adds 1 to how many bullets we've shot. So this one here is pretty simple, but we're going to actually create a script to do it so that we don't need to re-find these addresses and these instructions every single time we start the game. All you really need to do is you can just replace it with code that does nothing or nop it out. And then every time you shoot, your ammo doesn't go down at all. So let's restore that with the original code. And instead of nopping it, we're going to go to Tools, Auto Assemble, Template, AOB Injection. What it does is it finds an AOB that we can use every time we restart the game, and as it says, should be unique. And we can scan that, but we don't need to. It is unique. But it'll find that exact bit of code right there every time the game restarts. So when we want the script active, we don't want to lose any ammo. We don't want to add to our shot counter. So all we really need to do is comment that one line out. Let's assign that to our cheat table. And then you can double click on script there if you need to edit it. And you can see it just comments that out. Now if we enable that and reopen our memory view, jumps here, which just continues the instructions that it overwrote with the jump, and then jumps right back to the code we were just at. Right at the end of our part here that we overwrote. So it's pretty easy. And as you can see, it does the trick. Every time you shoot, our ammo never gets changed. You can turn that one off. Don't need that value anymore. And we will call that step 1. Okay, so this one here, the enemies have more health and do more damage, but we need to kill them both. So let's try shooting one, and yeah, as you can see, we lose health way faster than them. There's no real way to kill them. You can fly around, and in theory, you could just take a couple shots, move, take a couple shots, move, but that's not fun. So for this here, let's go ahead and find our health. We have 98 right now. Four. And it looks like that's the one. So what we're going to want to do here is find out, again, what writes this address. Take some damage. Let's go there in the disassembler. So all it does is subtract, and see what happens if we replace that with code that does nothing. Right, so we don't take damage anymore. We're invincible. But as you can see, no matter how many bullets we hit this guy with, he doesn't lose any health. So that's not going to do it. Whoops. Let's restore that. So what we want to do here is we can find out what address this instruction accesses. And as soon as you shoot, so you can see that's our player. We've got shot 6 times. Shoot the one on the left, his adds up. Shoot that one, his adds up. So we have 3 characters, 3 entities that are being accessed by this one address. So we're going to want to hover over all of them, right click, and we want to dissect data. Just hit OK. Oops. Just hit OK, and then hit yes, and then OK. And this window here will pop up. So we know this one's our player because we were the second one in there. So we have enemy, player, enemy, and all we need to do is find somewhere where the 2 outer values are the same, so the 2 computer values are the same, and ours is different. So we need to find a way to identify which of these is our player every time we restart, because we're not going to know each specific address. So going through, all we need to do is look at these red ones. All the green ones are the same throughout all 3. So don't really want to use that or that. That looks like health. That looks like probably max health. So this one here, plus 70, is 101. So 0 looks like it probably signifies that we're a player, and both the 1s signify that they're a computer. So 70. We can actually keep this window open. Just move it off to the side for now. Don't need that anymore. And as the last step, we'll hit Tools, Auto Assemble, do an AOB injection. And here we're going to want to, so this here is where we can overwrite the code that gets executed. This is what it'll put after the jump that it injects, and then before it jumps back to the rest of the game code. So let's start by making a label for kill, because we just want to kill the enemies. We don't even want to worry about having to shoot them however many times, 200 times each. Okay, so go right down here, go kill. And all we need to do is compare our user, or what kind of user it is. So in this case, we're plus 70. As you can see, it subtracts our health, which is 60, which is what it shows here. So we want to compare our 70, so rat plus 70, with a, so we're a 0, so with a 1, so if it's a enemy, sorry, my cat's trying to get on my desk. So if it's a 1, which signifies enemy, we want to jump to kill. And after kill, we can just copy and paste all of that, except instead of substituting whatever our damage is, which is most likely 1, we probably just want to move 0 into it. So we'll one-shot kill them. And while we're at it, we can do, well, if it's not, we will just comment this piece out. So now whenever someone gets shot, it'll go to here, it'll see if it's a player, or in this case, if it's a computer. If it's a computer, it will jump over to kill, which will move a 0 into their health, and then it'll just continue the normal flow like it always does. So this looks fine to me. Let's go ahead and add it to our cheat table. Close that, and that. And let's see what happens if we turn it on. So yeah, when we shoot, we don't take any damage. And if they shoot, yeah, we don't take any damage. Not even from these huge missiles that are supposed to kill us in one hit. So that's it for that one. We can go ahead and call that step 2, auto kill plus God mode. Might as well rename this one step 1. It's infinite ammo. And turn the hack off because we won't need it for this level. We don't need this window either. Okay, so this one here is, it's a little bit funner to play with. What we need to do is find a way that we can not get hit by enemies when they touch them. So we want to turn our collision off for enemies, or else that happens, but we don't want to turn it off for the doors or these ledges or anything else. So in this here, you can see we don't have any really known values. Everything's unknown, but we can control our player's movement, so our X and our Y. Let's just go ahead and search for a float, because most position values are, it's almost always a float. All we need to do is search for an unknown value, move over this way, search for an increased value, do the same thing again, and whoops, I'll undo that one because I don't know if it was right. Now we should be at a decreased value because we're further left. And we'll be unchanged. Click that a couple times. Maybe jump, because we didn't move left or right, so jumping shouldn't affect our X value. Same thing, get, and just continue. Okay, there we go. So we're down to 2. And it looks like this is probably it. That one's not actually changing, at least not to a decimal point that we can see. This is probably a good one. Let's try freezing it and see what happens. Yeah, so it just teleports us back immediately. So we know that is our player's X value. So let's go ahead and browse the memory region. We want to show as floats just so we can quickly grab the Y value. So if that's our X, that looks like it's probably going to be a Y. Yeah, as we're higher up, the number is lower. So add that to our list. X and Y. Okay, so now what we want to do is just kind of watch around our players area. We'll change our display type to, what am I looking for? 4-byte. And all we want to do is watch for something that changes when we die. So say it's a health or just certain flags or anything like that. We want to keep track of what changes and see what happens if we just freeze them. So these are our X and Y. Let's move over and we can see these change from 0 to something else. This one here changes to something else, but these two values here both get set to 1, which seems like it's a flag for something. So let's go ahead and add both of these. Let's make sure we grab the right ones. Yeah, both turn to 1 as soon as we die. So if we just freeze them at 0, looks like we get hit, but everything, we just kind of respawn immediately without hopefully resetting any platforms. Yeah. So that alone is one potential fix to this step, but it's not very elegant. It kind of looks janky. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to find a way to bypass the collision entirely. So to do that, first, let's just figure out what these two values actually do, because freezing them at 0 doesn't really do much. So if we freeze top one, okay, not sure, let's freeze the bottom one. And it looks like we disappear, but we don't actually die. So let's go ahead and say that one's probably is dead. If we change that to a 1, yeah, the game immediately resets. So that's probably is dead. This one here, let's change that to a 1. Okay, we just go invisible. So that's some sort of is visible. Perfect. So we don't really care about the visibility one, but we do want to figure out what changes when we get hit. What does it do before it decides if we die? So we'll go to find out what writes to this address, get hit once, that there. So we'll show it in our disassembler. And that's this instruction right here. It just moves a 1 into it, and then it will do whatever it does after to reset the map. So let's figure out what is actually calling this and see if we can just bypass that entirely. And to do that, you need to go down to break and trace. So it will attach a breakpoint, and then as soon as that breakpoint gets hit, it'll follow this here 1,000 instructions down until it figures out what, well, 1,000 instructions, then it'll show it all to us. So we don't want to step into function calls beyond this point. We just want to step over, because all we care about is what actually called whatever function we're in right here. Yeah, whatever, we can leave all that. We'll open this nice window, and the game runs like normal, as you can see, because that instruction hasn't been hit yet. But as soon as we get hit, it'll entirely freeze up while the debugger runs through and follows every instruction. So normally if we find out where we actually go back to, you'll have a little plus here. So clearly 1,000 wasn't enough. Let's just close that. Let's go back to break and trace. Change that to 5,000. The more you increase this, the longer your lag period will be, so you don't want to turn it up way too high because your game might freeze up for 10 minutes. But 5,000's a couple seconds, not terribly long. That's it. So still nothing. Let's close it again. Break and trace, and let's change that to 10,000. Maybe it's a really big function where it goes and resets everything. And you'll see this window sort of flashing. It's a good way to indicate if it's still working and that your game actually didn't just freeze up. And since it's not responding, you can't obviously do anything with it. But we can sit here and wait. And there you go. You got a little arrow, so we know that we're at least back 1 call. And it's still doing stuff, so there we go. So for this, just right click and hit expand all. And we got back quite a bit, but we don't want to go here because that's what we're looking at right there. We want to close that function and go back right before it. So this is the function that's actually called when we run into an enemy that decides that we need to die and restart. So you can see right here there is a jump that goes right over our function. So let's just go ahead and see what happens if we jump it. Just remember that was JE, jump if equal. Okay, so we can't get hit by the enemies. We can still hit the platform. Hopefully the door works. We won't know quite yet. But let's change that back to what it's supposed to be, which is JE. And we just want to do, again, AOB injection. And that was on the jump we want to do our AOB injection because we just want to change that to a jump. We can assign that to our cheat table. Close that. Whoops, let's close that too. We can rename that one to step 3. No collision, maybe? And yeah, so when it's not activated, again, it'll replace the original code and we'll die. But if we activate it, we can run through these enemies and they don't even know they're hitting us. So the point of this one here, if you didn't read it, is we have to jump onto each of these platforms so that they all turn green and the door will be unlocked so that X won't be over it anymore. And then we can just walk through the door. So we'll leave the no collision on. I don't feel like doing that. Change that to -1. Some of these jumps are a little tricky, and if you don't time it perfectly, hey, like that, you will fall. It's kind of a pain in the ass to jump back up and hope you don't screw them up. So here's why, even if you were to avoid everything, you would still get hit. Like, you still need to find a no collision or a way to teleport past the enemies, because we can't walk through them normally. If you try and touch them, you'll die. But with the hack turned on, looks like we can do that. And let's hope the door works. And it does, perfect. Okay, beat all 3 games, good. Now there is actually one extra game they don't tell you about, and you may have noticed it yourself. But when you attach to your game, goes off, these values won't be anything now. You'll see we get an integrity check error. So the game's actually checking if we're cheating, and it's just letting us know that it knows we're cheating. Okay, that won't disable for some reason. Let's just go ahead and open it again. There we go. So yeah, if you go in here, so we know this one's supposed to be on. Infinite ammo, integrity check error. Turn it off. The game can tell that we're not cheating anymore. So for this one here, we can quickly grab, we want to grab this instruction again because it's clearly checking if this has been modified. So let's go ahead and just grab our AOB again, do a new scan for an array of bytes, paste that in, and make sure you have writable blocked off. So we want to search for writable and non-writable usually. So hit first scan. Got this here, one instruction. Let's disassemble this memory region this time, because if you hit browse, it'll open up in this window. If you hit disassemble, it'll open up here in that disassembler. So this is that one, and every time we modify it, so if we were to say sub, it knows we're cheating. Let's go back to add, and we're not cheating anymore. So how it does it is it reads over every single byte in memory and just most likely just compares it to what's on the disk, and if it's different, then obviously something's changed that shouldn't have. A couple options here. We can either do it in memory, which is what we're going to do, or you could just patch the binary so that it never thinks you're cheating no matter what you do. But that doesn't work in a lot of games that have like auto updaters or a launcher or some way that it'll tell if you're running a current version. Maybe it just grabs a hash of the executable, and it'll either tell that you have a modified version or it'll think your version's outdated and it'll reinstall the version that you have but unmodified. So this here, doing it in memory is better because the game won't actually know. Well, if you disable it properly, there's no way for them to tell. So to do this, all we're going to do is we're going to, let's see if we can do it from here. Break. So copy this address by right-clicking, hitting go to address, Control C, go to address down here, paste it in. And this here is the same bytes that are up right here, but these are decimal because we're viewing it in 4-byte decimal. But all you need to do is right-click on this. I want to set a data breakpoint, and as soon as that's accessed, but actually what we should do is find out what accesses this address. So something's going through and reading each byte here over and over multiple times a second. So let's figure out what accesses that. Hit yes, and we immediately get 4, and then it stops. So maybe it's able to tell that it's being debugged and It's just not scanning anymore, hoping that we won't start by debugging this. But let's go ahead and 3 of them. Let's just pick the top one. All right, so it's moving some stuff, comparing, adding. Yeah. So it looks like it is doing something here. It's adding 0C to EAX, comparing 2 things and determining whether or not it should jump up here or if it should. Where is that? Where does that go? Okay, so it'll just loop through here over and over. If it's not greater than, so however they're comparing, looks like they're just adding something to it. If it's not greater than, so if it hasn't changed, it will, or sorry, if it has changed, I'm assuming, it'll drop down to this return. So now you'll notice right here, if I turn it on now, it's not telling us, and that's because, again, it knows the debugger's attached, and it's not even going to let us know that it thinks we're cheating. It just entirely disables the integrity check. So we get a 50-50 chance. To me, I'm thinking it's not returning every time it's correct, because then you wouldn't really need this loop. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try, actually we'll have to do our auto assemble, injection, change that, and let's just try changing that to a jump. And ideally it'll just set it to a constant loop right here where it'll always be looping through that. Even if something's wrong, it never jumps down to there. So let's just jump back up. And as always, assign to our cheat table. Leave that open just in case. Call that integrity check, bypass. And let's go ahead and restart the game so it doesn't even think the debugger is attached again. Reattach to it. Keep all this. Shouldn't need that anymore if we did everything right. And integrity check error, but let's go ahead and turn this on. And hopefully, no integrity check error still, that's good. And we still don't have a debugger attached, so we know it's not just turning off because the debugger's on. So once you have all your cheats figured out here, what you're going to want to do is just turn everything on and run through the game quickly, because you don't know if you share your cheats with someone, you want to make sure that with everything turned on, because someone's just going to download it and turn everything on, you want to make sure it doesn't break the game, so something doesn't all of a sudden stop working. So we'll turn everything on and try and run through the game and see what happens. So far, so good. Let's kill them both. So far, everything works. We've been able to shoot them, so the collision still works on everything else, just not this one. Oops. Alright, I really don't want to have to search for that value again. Perfect. Yeah, you can see this one also doesn't hit us. We can drop through. Oh my god. And with this one, there's quite a few things you could do. I would probably, if I wanted to make like a fly hack where it follows my mouse, I would definitely not do it in Cheat Engine because I don't know Lua well enough or assembly. But you could write something like that in C++ or whatever you're using to make your game hacks. Oh my god. Okay, let's try not to mess this up again. There we go. So far everything's worked, and as long as we can walk through the door, we're still good. There we go. The game even tells us we've beaten all 3 games and the integrity check. So it's like a hidden extra game in there they don't tell you about. So that's it. That's the Cheat Engine tutorial game. It's, like I said, it's not a perfect real world example, but it is much better than the original tutorial that just kind of goes through a basic step-by-step, here's a number, figure it out. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, bye.